All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty unexpected, the connection between oral bacteria and stroke risk. We're looking at some really interesting research that was presented at the American Stroke Association's International Stroke Conference.
Yeah.
And, well, it's safe to say it's definitely got me thinking differently about my oral hygiene routine.
You know, what's really fascinating about this particular study is that it really delves into this sort of like hidden world
Yeah?
of the trillions of bacteria that live in our mouths and our guts that make up what we call the microbiome.
Okay, so we've all heard of the gut microbiome.
Right.
But now we're talking about an oral microbiome, too. Is that like a separate thing, or is it all connected?
Well, they're definitely interconnected,
Right.
but they also have their own unique compositions and functions, you know?
Yeah.
Think of it like different neighborhoods in a city. They're all part of the same city, but each one has its own distinct character.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, and so this study found that an imbalance in the oral microbiome, specifically an overabundance of a bacteria called Streptococcus anginosus, was significantly linked to a greater risk of stroke.
Why, Streptococcus anginosus, isn't that the bacteria that causes strep throat?
Well, Streptococcus is actually a genus of bacteria,
Okay.
and there are many different species within that genus. Some Streptococcus species are indeed associated with strep throat,
Uh-huh.
but Streptococcus anginosus is a different species. It's commonly found in the mouth and the GI tract,
Okay.
and it's actually known to contribute to things like tooth decay.
Interesting. So is the idea here that this bacteria is somehow traveling from the mouth to the brain and causing a stroke?
That's a good question, and it's something that researchers are still trying to understand fully.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that the bacteria is directly traveling to the brain,
Okay.
but rather that its presence in the mouth and the gut can trigger a cascade of events that ultimately increases stroke risk.
Okay, so what kind of events are we talking about?
Well, for example, an overgrowth of Streptococcus anginosus in the mouth can lead to inflammation,
Uh-huh.
and that inflammation can then spread throughout the body, potentially affecting blood vessels and increasing the risk of stroke.
So it's like this domino effect starting in the mouth?
Exactly. And what's really striking is that the study found that the presence of Streptococcus anginosus in the gut was independently associated with a 20% higher chance of stroke.
Whoa. Okay, so even after considering other risk factors like high blood pressure or smoking, this specific bacteria was still linked to an increased risk of stroke.
Precisely.
That's pretty significant.
It is, and it suggests that there's something more going on here than just coincidence.
Yeah, this is really making me rethink my whole approach to oral health.
And you know, it's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, good.
The study also found that the presence of certain beneficial bacteria in the gut was linked to a reduced stroke risk.
So it's like a balancing act.
Exactly. It's all about maintaining a healthy balance of bacteria in our microbiome.
Which I'm guessing is easier said than done.
It can be, but there are things we can do to help tip the scales in favor of the good bacteria.
Like what? Spill the beans.
Well, for starters, brushing and flossing regularly are essential.
Okay, I'm already doing that.
Great, but it's not just about brushing and flossing. Diet plays a huge role, too.
Oh boy, here we go.
What we eat literally feeds the bacteria in our mouths. So cutting back on sugary drinks and processed foods and adding more fruits, vegetables, and whole grains to our diet can make a big difference.
So I guess that means I should swap out my afternoon soda for a piece of fruit.
That's a great idea.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a try if it means reducing my risk of stroke.
And you know, it's not just about individual choices.
Mm-hmm.
This study focused on a Japanese population.
Right.
And while the overall message about the connection between oral health and stroke risk is likely universal, the specific bacterial players involved might differ across populations.
So what you're saying is that lifestyle and diet can significantly influence the types of bacteria that thrive in our bodies.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's still a lot we don't know,
Yeah.
but this research is definitely a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. It opens up a whole new avenue for exploring the link between oral health and stroke risk. And I'm excited to see what future studies reveal.
Me too. I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to understanding the complex world of the microbiome and its impact on our health.
I agree. This research highlights just how interconnected our bodies truly are.
And it emphasizes the importance of taking a holistic approach to our health.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So before we went to a break, we were talking about some pretty groundbreaking research linking oral bacteria and stroke risk.
Yeah, and it's really got me thinking, what does all this mean for our listeners?
Wow.
Like, should we all be running to the dentist right now to get checked out?
I mean, it definitely underscores the importance of good oral hygiene.
Right.
But there's no need to panic.
Okay.
Brushing twice a day, flossing regularly, and seeing your dentist for regular checkups.
Yeah.
Those are all important steps.
Okay, so those are all things we should be doing anyway?
Exactly.
But are there other things that our listeners can do to help tip the scales in favor of those good bacteria?
You bring up a good point.
Yeah.
Diet plays a huge role.
Oh, boy. Here we go, the dreaded diet talk.
Well, it's true. What we eat literally feeds the bacteria in our mouths.
Okay.
So cutting back on those sugary drinks,
Hmm.
processed snacks is a great place to start.
So you're telling me that swapping out my afternoon soda for a glass of water could actually make a difference in my oral microbiome?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Think about adding more
Okay.
fruits, vegetables, and whole grains to your plate.
Okay.
It's all about creating an environment in your mouth that favors those beneficial bacteria.
So it's like we're gardeners, but for our mouths.
Exactly.
I like that.
Tend to your oral garden.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, but what about things like yogurt or kimchi? I've heard those are good for your gut health.
Yeah.
But could they also benefit the oral microbiome?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Fermented foods like yogurt and kimchi contain probiotics,
Right.
which are live bacteria that can help restore balance to your gut microbiome.
Yeah.
And since your oral and gut microbiomes are so interconnected,
Yeah.
it's possible that those probiotics could have a positive ripple effect.
So enjoying a bowl of yogurt with berries in the morning or some kimchi with my dinner could actually be doing my mouth a favor.
Potentially.
Wow. Okay. Food for thought, literally.
It's always a good idea to check with your healthcare provider before making any major dietary changes.
Good point.
Oh.
So it's amazing how something as simple as choosing what we eat can have such a profound impact on our health.
Right.
Like all the way down to the microscopic level.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of our bodies, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And this research showing this connection between oral bacteria and stroke risk, it makes me wonder what other surprises might be out there. Could our oral microbiome be linked to other health conditions too?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one that researchers are actively exploring. The human microbiome is a vast and complex world.
Right.
And we're only just beginning to uncover its secrets.
It's mind-boggling to think that these tiny organisms living inside us could hold so much power over our health.
I know. It's really incredible.
It is. And this study, it's just a piece of the puzzle. But it really emphasizes the importance of continued research in this field.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But for now, I think the key takeaway for our listeners is that taking care of our oral health isn't just about aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's a crucial part of overall well-being.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And it's never too late to start making those healthy choices that support a balanced and thriving microbiome.
Well said.
All right, so before we wrap up this deep dive, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned and consider what it all means for the future of stroke prevention and treatment. Welcome back. We've been talking about this connection between oral bacteria and stroke risk.
Yeah.
And I got to say, it's been really eye-opening. It makes you think about those everyday habits.
Right.
Like brushing and flossing in a whole new light.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up,
I
want to kind of zoom out a little bit and think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What could this research mean for the future of stroke prevention and treatment?
That's a great question. And it's one that has researchers really excited.
Okay.
Imagine a future where a simple test could analyze your oral microbiome and give you personalized insights into your risk of stroke.
So it's like having a crystal ball for your health.
Exactly.
But instead of gazing into the future, we're looking at these tiny organisms living inside us.
Precisely.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And what if we could actually modify our oral microbiome to reduce our risk? Is that even possible?
Well, it's definitely an area of active research.
Okay.
There's a growing interest in developing targeted therapies that could actually manipulate the microbiome to prevent or even treat various diseases.
And stroke could be one of them?
Potentially.
So instead of just focusing on managing those traditional risk factors, like high blood pressure or cholesterol, we could actually be addressing the root cause of the problem.
Exactly.
By creating a healthier microbiome.
It's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, it really is. It's like a whole new frontier in medicine.
It is. And while more research is needed to translate these findings into practical applications, the potential is huge.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling more optimistic about the future of stroke
Me
prevention.
too.
This whole deep dive has really underscored just how interconnected our bodies are.
Absolutely.
It's like a domino effect.
Uh-huh.
Taking care of our oral health could have these ripple effects
Right.
throughout our entire system, potentially protecting us from stroke and other health issues down the line.
Couldn't agree more.
So what's the one key takeaway that
Mm.
you really hope our listeners remember from this episode?
If there's one thing I want listeners to take away from this,
Yeah.
it's that your mouth is a gateway to your overall health.
Hmm.
Don't underestimate the power of those trillions of bacteria living inside you. Taking care of your oral microbiome is an investment in your well-being.
Well said. And for our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep learning, stay curious, and never underestimate the incredible power of your own body to heal and thrive. And hey, maybe give your toothbrush a little extra love tonight.